what supplements are definitely like a necessity, like fish oil, I'm assuming, and then what are some of the more less, I guess you could say, studied supplements that you believe actually improve cognitive function that are sustainable?
Well, anything we make has been studied. In our core values, science-based is second. Our first core value is authenticity. We live the message. If you don't live the message, you suck as a messenger. So I'll just tell you what I take every day. I make this amazing shake every morning about 11 o'clock. I just had it. Protein powder. We make chocolate protein powder. They're plant protein powders. They're extremely low carb. There's no sugar. Most of the protein powders you get in the store are just loaded with crap. And for us, we call that a brand violation. It's, organic protein powder. And then I put in a scoop of Bright Minds powder. This is a very special concoction. I did the big NFL study and high levels of damage, but I put my NFL players on a specific supplement regimen and 80% showed improvement in as little as 2 months. Multiple vitamin, we make something called Neurovite Plus, brain and memory power boost that boosts your brain and memory in 6 different ways. And then omega-3 power. Well, people were complaining about the number of supplement pills they had to take a day or capsules. Yeah. And so I put it in a powder. And so
that's all that stuff is in one
except
formulation?
For the fish oil. All the Neurovite Plus and brain and memory power boost in one scoop. So I put that in the protein powder. And then I put in a scoop of smart mushrooms. So it's extract from 5 different mushrooms, including lion's mane and turkey tail and reishi and cordyceps. And then I put in a scoop of Neuro Greens. And I don't know why we call it greens. We should call it Neuro Rainbow because it's blues and reds and, it's extract from plants. And then I put in usually a cup of berries and then water, mix it up. And that's how I start my day. Oh, we make something called Neuro C, which is liposomal vitamin C. I usually put that in the bottom of the cups. I make this every morning for my wife. And that's how I take my, and then
that's awesome. Did you see? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I add to that happy saffron. I am a huge fan.
Saffron. I just took saffron before this podcast. I took the Spanish spice. I literally took it out and I had like a handful of it. Maybe I don't know if I'm taking too much, but I get a lot of it.
Probably not too much. Okay. The studies on it are stunning. There are 24 randomized controlled trials comparing 30 milligrams of saffron with antidepressants, shown to be equally effective. But saffron also has been shown to enhance memory and sexual functioning. And we released this in March of 2020. So pandemic, I had to shut down my clinic in New York for a couple of weeks. My dad died. And I'm like, all right, I'm taking happy saffron every day. And I will never miss it. I love that. It's also made with zinc and curcumin. Talk about decreasing inflammation in the brain. I'm a huge fan of curcumin. And then I take omega-3 fatty acids, extra vitamin D, because I want to keep my level around 80. I think that's
how many IUs do you take?
I take what's in Bright Minds powder, and then that's 2,000, and then I take 5,000 more. So I take 7,000 units a day. And then I take berberine, quercetin, and extra curcumin. And that's my regimen. We just released something called Calm My Brain that is the biggest launch we've ever had. It's got ashwagandha, theanine, and magnesium. Anxiety disorders double.
Which form of magnesium? L-threonate or citrate?
It's actually L-threonate and glycinate. Ones that are easily absorbed. A lot of people go to the health food store and get magnesium oxide, and it's just not very well absorbed.
No, I take magnesium L3, I take the patented version Magtine. It was developed in MIT, and that one, I heard it on Andrew Huberman's podcast. He had a breath expert on, and then one of his colleagues that worked with him, he ended up going to MIT and working on Magtine. So they outsource and lease their patented magnesium L-threonate. But I've found that magnesium L-threonate is definitely the best form of magnesium. I've taken them all, so definitely implement that. So you take all those things, so people can get that on your website,
brainmd.com.
Okay.
And I get so excited about finding natural ways to help mood, to help anxiety. And just during the pandemic, I sort of watched what sells, and our anxiety products. We have one called GABA Calming, everyday stress relief. One of my favorite products, I don't need it because I'm the Energizer Bunny, is Focus and Energy. It helps a lot of people. And then we have systems. We have Brain and Body Power. I think that's sort of the basic nutrients everybody should take. Multiple vitamin, fish oil, brain boost, and then Brain and Body Power Max. That was actually my NFL formula.
Brain and Body Max. Okay. Did you and the NFL players were scanned prior to taking these, and then within 3 months after you got tested from a lab, all legit, what were the increases that you saw by implementing these specific supplements?
So increases in blood flow to the front part of the brain, and that was often for them the part of the brain that was hurt. They had improvements in mood, in memory, in focus, motivation, and sleep. And when we tested them, we did a test called microcog, computerized cognitive test, dramatic increases. And it was so much fun to watch. And, like the first 20, everybody's got a better brain. And then all of a sudden, one of my guys, and he was actually one of the sponsors of my study, he was the president of the Los Angeles chapter of the NFL Players Association. His brain looked worse. And I'm like, what happened? Because that was irritating to me. And he decided to pick up marijuana in between his first and second scan. On social media, it's the most common question I get. And marijuana is just not good for your brain. It prematurely ages the brain. And, I don't have a dog in the fight. It's just been my experience is it makes your brain look older than you are.
And that's exactly why I never started this. Well, I never saw, first of all, for me, the idea of taking something and being more calm and less productive is like a nightmare. Like, I get caffeine, I get all the other stuff, but for me to take something and be calmer, for me, that makes no sense. But I get it if you want to like hang out and be more relaxed. But I would never smoke. But people always say that you're still inhaling smoke. If you're smoking marijuana, yes, I get it. It's not as bad as cigarettes, but you're still inhaling smoke, and there's still things that are going on that shouldn't be happening. What's your take on CBD?
I think the jury's still out. There are some studies showing that it decreases social anxiety. There are other studies that show it may have anti-seizure effects. In my mind, it's like, have you done the simpler things? Like, have you tried a ketogenic diet? Or do you know how to do diaphragmatic breathing? Have you been hypnotized? Do you meditate? Have you taken magnesium, theanine, ashwagandha, GABA? It's just the easy, hip answer that just not smart. I always want to think, am I doing something that helps me feel good now and later versus now, but not later? And also in my head, I always think skills, not just pills.
Yeah. Do you think there's any cognitive impairing factors of taking CBD, or you think you can take it? It might not do what you want it to do, but there's no downside to when it comes to like cognitive impairment.
No, I just don't know. Okay. And, like magic mushrooms or microdosing mushrooms,
psilocybin,
really popular thing. And I just remember how excited people were when benzos first came out. or how excited people were when opiates came out. And, the government actually pushed us to prescribe opiates. And, cocaine was in the original version of Coca-Cola. I'm like, let's go for things that don't hurt you first.
Well, I saw that on your Instagram. So what about people that eat healthy and they don't drink, they don't smoke, but when they go out to a party or they go over a friend's house and they're ready to decompress and hang out, they drink a Diet Pepsi or a Diet Coke? Is that worse than just drinking a Coors Light or a shot of tequila?
No, I wouldn't say Diet Coke is worse than a shot of tequila, but it's not good for you. And all of the evidence with diet drinks are they increase diabetes and obesity.
What about cognitively? Any effect, or the jury's not out on cognitive impairment?
Well, it's interesting. When I was 35, I had arthritis and I had trouble getting off the ground if I was playing with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
Then I had a patient come in my office and she said she got rid of aspartame and her pain went away. And I'm like, no way. And I think most of what I've actually learned from my patients. And so I decided, I was drinking like Diet Coke like it was my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided to stop and my pain went away. And then I went and decided to test it and got like 32-ounce Diet Coke from Jack in the Box or some god awful place. And boy, did I hurt so much. And
did you have any withdrawals?
You are
not drinking?
cognitive. I didn't have any withdrawals.
Okay.
But I got withdrawal from the pain. But if you're in pain, you're cognitively impaired.
Physical pain.
If you're in physical pain, you're cognitively impaired.
So if your back hurts and you're like, man, my back is killing me, you're cognitively impaired as well. It's
You're
not just physical.
Because it's taken up room in your brain.
Interesting. Well, have you ever done, and I want to get into routines, obviously like sauna, cold plunge, all that, but have you ever done sensory deprivation tank and isolation float tanks? And if you have, or if you have studied it or know about it, what's your take on that?
I haven't. So I guess I don't have a great take on it. I've had lots of friends do it and think it's really amazing, sort of like ice baths. I've had lots of friends do it. And I'm just a huge believer in not suffering. I grew up Roman Catholic. I went to Catholic school. And, I sort of did long suffering. My first marriage was long suffering. I'm just not a fan of pain and suffering.
I got you. Okay, so that's awesome. We talked about food. We talked about sups, routines. You don't like pain, so I'm assuming you don't do cold plunge or high intense sauna. The float tank is.
I love.
Oh, okay. So you do
just
sauna.
Turn the camera around. I love being hot.
Okay.
So yeah,
so
I
what's
do
your
sauna a couple of times a week. The research on sauna is stunning.
What type of sauna though? Because some people do infrared and some people do hot sauna. I've done both, and I like the hot sauna better because you can tap into the heat shock proteins. But what's your take?
So I have an infrared sauna.
Okay.
But
clear light.
I think sweating is what you want to do. But also, as you said, tapping into the heat shock proteins is important, and maybe the healing mechanism behind it.
Okay, so routines. What routines?
Well,
you got your.
One of my favorite things to do is, I'm like always walking. I like to walk, and I do my meetings that way. So I have a 40-minute huddle in the morning, and I live in Newport Beach. So I'm like going to the beach or Balboa Island, or I'm going someplace cool, and I'm doing the meetings while I'm walking. Plus, if you exercise, it increases serotonin. And so I'm nicer when I walk, and I'm always nice. I'm not an irritable person.
Well, you take the saffron, so you have to be nice.
I'm more flexible. So if you deal with an oppositional partner or an oppositional employee or an oppositional child and you need to talk to them, take them on a long walk, and don't even bring up anything negative for the first 10 minutes. Let them get a little serotonin cooking in their brain.
That's interesting. So if you want to do a good business deal, say, hey, let's go on a walk. And you walk through nature. And then within about 15 minutes, you time it. Okay, good. So here's the deal, buddy.
And they're going to be more receptive
Mm.
because their brain's going to work just a little bit better if you're going to give them a good deal. They're not going to be more receptive if you're going to give them a bad deal, because they're going to actually be a little bit sharper. So, if you want to manipulate them, get them drunk.
Oh, man. Yeah, sign on the dotted line. Here's a shot of tequila. So, yeah, I heard that even looking at a picture of nature increases cognitive function. Is that true?
Well, it increases happiness. I'm not sure it increases cognitive function, but it increases happiness.
Okay.
When you're happier, you generally think better.
Yeah. What's the correlation between high cognitive function, genius level Elon Musk, and just being happy? Because there's a lot of people that are geniuses and they're not the happiest people. What's the correlation with that?
Yeah, you're right. A lot of the people that are really smart aren't really happy. But Howard Gardner from Harvard had this really interesting concept of multiple intelligences. So you could be really smart in some things and really dumb in other things. And so, Elon Musk talks openly about having autism. And so really smart in business and creativity, but maybe not that smart when it comes to relationships. So, and if your relationships aren't healthy, you're not happy. Secret number 6 in You Happier is notice what you like about other people more than what you don't. That you're powerful, you're influential. And if you're making other people happy by noticing what you like I know exactly how to get my redheaded wife to yell at me. I clear in my head the pathway to hell. And I just don't go on it. I just what do I like about her today? And I say it, and I'm just more likely to get smiles and affection than I say the first stupid thing I think. And so, you can be a genius, your IQ, but sort of a dunce when it comes to either your physical health or your relationships. And that's why you're not happy. So people who have a high EQ, emotional intelligence, more likely to be happy.
What if you have, so obviously IQ, like an Elon Musk or someone that's on the spectrum that is extremely smart, mathematically or logistically, they can work. I feel like it's easier for them to work on EQ versus someone that is, very persuasive, a good salesperson, and has high IQ or high EQ, but not, I wouldn't say subpar IQ, but very average IQ, but high EQ, like the types of people that we see that are successful. If someone is not genetically gifted like an Elon Musk for IQ, but they have a good EQ, but they want to maximize their IQ, what is some stuff that actually has some science behind it that they can do that actually works to increase their IQ? Because I feel like there's so much research on how to become better at EQ and be a better person when it comes to emotional intelligence. But every time someone brings up IQ, they're like, it's genetics.
It's totally a combination of environment and genetics. So if you eat better, you're going to be smarter. One of my favorite strategies I learned from my friend Jim Carroll. He and I did a course together, Jim Carroll's Memory Master course. I love it. Exercise while you're learning. So if you're learning 4 languages, do it while you're on the bike. Or
I'm doing it
while you're walking, or do it while you're on the elliptical. Because what's happening is when you exercise, you're actually growing a part of your brain called your hippocampus. And if you then feed it information, hippocampus gets memory into long-term storage, gets what you're learning into long-term storage, and actually will grow your hippocampus, which, oh, by the way, is involved with mood and memory and spatial awareness. And so if you're doing new learning while you're exercising, that'll grow your IQ.
Yeah. So I have a whole stack of Mandarin flashcards that I wrote out, and I have like 4 different mechanisms of learning new languages, and I do these every night on the bike, low intensity, and go through them all. Some of them are new, completely new, and then some of them are ones that I've been seeing for weeks or months at that point. I have about 600 and something flashcards in there for the most common used words in every language, and I do it on the bike. Shout out to Tim Ferriss for letting me know that. Very low intensity though, because obviously if you're sprinting and you're trying to you're on the treadmill and you're sprinting as hard as you can and you're trying to learn all these different words and different symbols, you're going to be too stressed out because the physical requirements are too hard. So you would have to take it back and do very, very low, not even zone 2, maybe zone 1 cardio.
I would just say do it as you can. I know what Jim did is he just did it while he was on the bike. So rather than watching,
but he wasn't going like crazy. He was going just a
nice, I don't think he was going 10 miles an hour or something.
Nuts. Right. Does that work with visual only, or does that work with audio as well? What if you're listening to an audio book on the bike? Does it have the same science backing audio versus visual, or is it only visual?
Oh, no, I think it's audio as well. But if you're listening to a story, I mean, you're not really learning anything.
Right, like I have
you're
Michelle
trying
Thomas.
to repeat it back.
Okay.
Right? I mean, if you're doing a language or you're doing a math course, it totally can be helpful.
Got you. Because I have one of my methods is Michelle Thomas, and it's all audio. So if I was doing the bike, listening to that would definitely improve the retention for short and long-term memory, which was actually going to be one of my questions. What would you say for verbal fluency increase? Like if you want to increase your verbal fluency, maybe it's someone that stutters a lot and they want to pick the best word. And sometimes when they go to think of what's the best word to use in this scenario, there's a block. There's some type of blockade. If you want to increase your verbal fluency and short-term, long-term memory, besides exercise, what would be your 80-20 rule on that? What's the most effective thing that science actually backs when it comes to verbal fluency and short and long-term memory?
I think it'd be singing. That try to sing them, because that may actually help your verbal fluency better, at least as you're trying to learn them. You're just activating different parts of your brain.
Interesting. Okay. With all the people, and you've analyzed tons of people at this point, celebrities, athletes, everyone, at this point in your career, what is the main reason why people succeed, and what is the main reason why people fail at getting back on track?
Well, I think it's trust in a new process is the reason they succeed, and they fail because of their habits that they continue and they justify, oh, I have to vape, or oh, I have to drink, or but if I get someone to trust me and they do the process like we talked about with Troy Gloss, it matters. Or I remember Justin Bieber came into my office, and I adore him. But like many celebrities, he'd go, he'd do what I said, he wouldn't do what I say. And when he was in a really dark place, he came into my office and he said, my brain is an organ like my heart is an organ. If you told me I had heart problems, I'd do everything you said, because I'm going to do everything you say. And then he just got radically better. And
it's pretty good insight.
And I love that so much. Or Miley Cyrus, she and I did a Instagram live together at the beginning of the pandemic, and she fell in love with her brain, and it took time. If you look at her development, she just did NBC's New Year's Eve party, Miley's New Year's Eve party. I'm so proud of her. She just did amazing. but she stayed with the process over time. And some people are ready for it and other people aren't. And you just try to be there for when they're ready.
I think people get excited in the beginning, right? Before it develops to a habit, you get excited. I think that's why having stakes, admitting that you're doing something to other people will keep you on track. Like Tim Ferriss talks about the DIS mechanism of learning something new, and the last S is stakes, and you have to develop states because that's going to keep you on track. Because I think a lot of people, when they start a diet or when they start to increase their cognitive function, it's fun, it's exciting, but then the butterflies and the glitter that goes away, and now it's okay, now I have to do this every day forever, so now it has to be formed into a habit,
and you have to love the habit. Right.
Yeah.
I want to love things that love me back. I've sort of figured out my relationship. I'm married to a woman I love who loves me back. I eat food I love that loves me back. I do new learning with things I love me back. And it's this relationship with life, and knowing that it's fleeting. It's, let's make the most of it. And so let's create this atmosphere of love and information. And so wherever in those 4 circles I talked about, my relationships, my work, and my physical, emotional, spiritual health, am I just doing things I love that love me back, that have meaning and purpose?
That's awesome. How big of like a brain game component plays a role in increasing your cognitive function, like reading, puzzles, playing Tetris? Because I heard when you're playing brain games, it's not the actual game, it's changing games and keeping your mind flexible and adaptable. But let's start with reading, right? If you're reading every night, are you going to be smarter than someone that doesn't read? Same person. You take 2 people, you clone them. One person reads every night, one person doesn't read. At the end of their life, I'm assuming the person that reads every night is going to be smarter if they were to take a test,
Well,
a cognitive test.
It depends. I mean, the other person who's not reading may be, playing table tennis. And that'll actually make you smarter, probably smarter than reading, because it's activating your cerebellum, your prefrontal cortex, and your basal ganglia all at once. It's keeping your brain healthy, where reading may only be activating the left front side of your brain. Unless you're reading fantasy, it'll also activate the right side.
What would be your go-to brain games in that aspect if someone wanted to implement a couple?
Let me just say this, and I only have a couple more minutes before I have to run. Think that the brain has many different areas. And so just doing a crossword puzzle is like going to the gym, doing a right bicep curl, and then leaving, because it's just working out the language part of your brain. So you want to do word games, left, front side. You want to write, because that would be the right side of your brain if you're thinking creatively. You want to knit or do some coordination exercise. So for me, it's table tennis. I love table tennis. Or any sort of, people play racket sports, live longer than everybody else. Like way longer than runners, longer than swimmers, longer than people play soccer or football. So racket sports, and now the popular one's pickleball. You want to just think of working out all of your brain. So language stuff, creative stuff, directional stuff, coordination things. And it's sort of like, when I worked out today, I worked out my abs, worked out my back, worked out my chest, worked out my upper back. You want to work out all of your brain.
I appreciate it. Well, guys, we as the Justin Caviar team and everyone listening, we appreciate you. We appreciate you jumping on. How do people get your book? How do they buy your supplements? What's the best way to reach out to you?
So You Happier comes out March 1st. If you go to youhappier.com, we have all sorts of cool free gifts, including a bottle of Happy Saffron. But you have to do it like right away. And You can learn about the clinics at amenclinics.com. Amen, like the last word in a prayer. And our supplements are at brainmd.com.
All right, guys. Well, you heard it here. All of the links and directions will be in the show notes below. Daniel, I appreciate your time. Any last words before you end this thing?
Just, I'm grateful to know you. You're just doing so many great things. If I was doing those when I was 30, I have no idea where I'd be today. But
Well,
I'm amazed, and any way I can be supportive, I'm there.
I appreciate you, man. I really do. And you coming on has definitely been, I can knock off one of my lifelong goals. So, all right, guys. Well, you heard it here, folks, from Dr. Amen to Justin Caviar. This is the Justin Caviar Show, and we're out. Bye-bye, y'all.